Welcome again. I wanted to be the last one in. Oh, I was forgetting my time, so sorry for that. We are starting again, and I must say before I forget it, when we are done somewhere around 5 o'clock, there's sort of reception in the same area where we have the break now. Innovation Norway has promised a lot of exciting entertainment, free drinks all night. No, just kidding. It will be an ordinary reception with some refreshments, hopefully. But don't have too... No, I think it will be a good reception. Okay, we are moving on. We will have one more presentation before we turn ourselves into a panel and try to discuss a little bit more of all these interesting views and thoughts that has been shown in the previous presentations and in the next one as well. Because in the next one we will have Ms. Danica Melkovic. She's head of R&D in docking, I think it's pronounced, and a very exciting company called In the Loop. She's a researcher, engineer, and consultant in the energy and power engineering sector. She's president of the Croatian Hydrogen Association and also working as a CTO in the Loop. It's a startup. I think we will hear a little bit more about In the Loop in her presentation. I hope so. I would have done that if I were her, at least. Because that's a very interesting technology, a gasification technology that turns waste into hydrogen. That's my way of explaining it. Probably a little bit too easy, but that's at least the ambition of the technology. And one other thing, she's also running for a position on the board of directors at Hydrogen Europe. Remember that, all of you who know people in Brussels. And what she wrote on her LinkedIn profile is that she will enhance the role of SMEs, bridging the language between policymakers and technology. What's not to like about that? Please.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Nice to be here with you today. And as Thomas said, now for the last presentation, something completely different. So I come from Croatia. Within our company, we are a startup in the Loop, a spin-off from Docking, but within Docking we do the development of most of our innovations. We are more than 30 years existent R&D and innovation technology company in Croatia. And within Docking, we are working on our new program. Besides robotics that we have been presented for as I said, more than 30 years, we have a new innovation we've been working on, and it's a looper. I will speak here mostly about textile waste gasification because we have just now successfully finished one project with the support of Innovation Norway for the development of this specific technology. But what we actually do within Docking, we develop problem-solving innovations. And as you might remember, some time ago, almost 40 years ago now, we had an unfortunate war in Croatia, and we started our operation with development of technology that would demine the fields after this combat actions, so to save human lives and put people out of danger. We became a global leader in this part, so we are doing humanitarian demining. And now we have a new adventure for us, and we are trying to, in a way, try to prevent hazardous influence to the environment and thus, in that way, save lives. Croatia, as like a fun fact, is one of the rare EU countries we don't have incineration plants. So only, as far as I know, Malta and Cyprus don't have incineration plants. And here we always had a problem with waste, and that's how we came to the idea to develop a technology that would in one hand get rid of the waste, and on the other hand have zero harmful impact to the environment, so we don't have actually any emission out of this technology. Looking at textiles as one of the waste streams, we are developing specific facilities, power plant or systems to deal with. Textile has extremely low recycling rate globally. It's on the level of 1%. So textile is not just fashion, fast fashion. Textiles are carpets, textiles are these chairs. So there is a lot of textile, mattresses, pillows, blankets. So there is a lot of textile that doesn't have a second life and that cannot be used in any other way usefully except to then not usefully incinerate it and or landfill it somewhere, and with time again it will emit some harmful gases into the atmosphere. What we did, we came up with the looper. Here in the middle you can see just our facility that we have developed under Innovation Norway grant. So what we do, unlike electrolysis, and this is something that is completely different, but then again not that different. In electrolysis you would use electricity energy to split the molecule of water to hydrogen and oxygen. And in looper we actually use thermal energy to split the hydrocarbon molecule, which consists of carbon and hydrogen, again to this carbon and hydrogen, of course. What we get in this way, we get at one end we get a gas. As you can see, syngas. Syngas is a hydrogen-rich gas. And we get a solid residue. In this solid residue, we actually want to, in a way, capture this carbon. As much as carbon as possible, we want to put in the solid residue, and then to actually permanently remove it from the environment in the way that it becomes inert. We have other projects where we consider putting this solid residue into, for example, construction materials like bricks, roof tiles, concrete, and similar. So in that way, it doesn't slip to the environment and makes some harmful to our ecosystem. So the system is called Looper. We have actually trademarked this global trademark for this name. So wherever you see Looper, you will know that it comes from Croatia. This is a sort of a sketch of the process. What we do and what we develop is actually the core of our system. This is we call it the reactor and the cleaning system. How we break this molecule? We break it by heating up to high temperatures. In the reactor, we go up to something like 850 degrees, and then again in the afterheater, which is then an additional device that we have, we even increase this temperature to over 1000 degrees. In this way, we eliminate all the harmful things within gas. We get a gas that is a mixture of hydrogen and carbon monoxide. And then in other systems which we do not develop, that are off the shelf, like PSA units or some other gas cleaning system, we can separate the hydrogen from the mixture of the gases that we have previously produced. This system is again sort of a patent of ours. It's a unique system globally. There have been other systems for gasification or for pyrolysis, but this concept has not been implemented yet. And we are again here focusing on the unrecyclable waste materials. So besides textile, it's unrecyclable plastics. It can be some residue biomass, sewage sludge, waste sewage sludge, for which we have actually, for this system, we have actually one other project within the Innovation Fund of EU. So how these things work in schematics? So we get waste, we put it into the gasification system. This is our reactor, and we get two things out of it. We get syngas, and we get carbon black and solid ash. Carbon black and ash can be used in different industries, as I say, construction industries. Carbon black can be used, for example, in tire or paint production or something similar. And syngas can be either directly used for heating, for example, then in that way it would replace the natural gas, or it can be used in a way that we extract the hydrogen out of this mixture of gases, which is this PSA unit, and then again we have certain potential for different off-takers. So like, okay, we have fuel cells that we learned something about today. We can blend it into the existing gas grid, which is something that European Backbone is progressing to. We can use it in industry. Here is very interesting, all of these hard-to-abate sectors like petrochemical industry, steel industry, refineries, and similar. And again, and at the end, we have this transfer that we are talking here about, which is then habit transfer, that we could use this hydrogen produced out of waste. For example, in some ideal environment, you will have a waste company that will take all of the non-recyclable waste to their site, produce hydrogen, and then possibly use this hydrogen to fuel their trucks, with which they would again collect the waste in their area. Here is a bit about the technology overview that I won't, of course, bother you about, but the system consists of certain groups, like we have first machinery for the material preparation, then reactor, afterheater, cyclones and scrubbers for cleaning up the gas, cooling up the gas, storage, and then again some kind of a consumer, which can be a syngas motor or a hydrogen-producing PSA unit. And we have a solid residue. Here at the bottom you can see our product. For textiles, it comes in these containers, so it's easily movable. It can fit in up to 4 containers. Besides the machinery, we have one container only for the automation part, where our brains, our computers that run the systems are, but it can be put on any truck and transported anywhere where there is a need for such a technology. As I said, so this is the main idea was within the Innovation Norway project to make a smaller capacity plant that is possible to easily reallocate. And the whole facility is in containers, but again, it doesn't have to be in containers. It can be just placed in some building that the final consumer already has at their disposal. So that's much from my side. Hopefully, we will get some chance to discuss it further, and if you have any chances, we'll see each other at the dinner we have afterwards, as Thomas said. Thank you.
For the panel discussion, I will use my microphone instead. Please enter the stage, all of you, and we will just go straight to that right away. And we all have to remember to keep our microphones a little bit high when we talk. Act like rock stars. Okay, we will just go straight into the panel discussion. I thought I'll just start by going to each and every one of you with my initial questions to you, and then feel free to raise your hand, and if anyone has questions to the presentations from each and every one, and then we will just move more general discussions afterwards. I think that's at least my idea of a way of solving this panel. So, I'll just start with you, Paul. You were talking about, at the end of your presentations, you had some of the challenges you showed listed up. It was about production, infrastructure, safety, and so on. Which one of these challenges is the most important challenge to solve, in your opinion? You know, to scale up this hydrogen market.
Well, if we take all the challenges together, I think one of the ones that I highlighted was, and this is actually something that has come up and even just recent conversations at Power Up with some of the end applications for projects. Some of the maybe even the final challenge will be the actual public perception. It's a big one. I think there's different applications need different sorts of setups. For example, around safety. So obviously around. I mean, even if you look at your history and look where they introduced natural gas and sort of even sort of electricity into homes, there was for the first 10 years there was people were afraid to go near their plug sockets in their house or were afraid to do things. It feels to me as if that's one of the challenges for hydrogen from a perception level. From a technical point of view, though, being the tech guy, I think probably the one for me is going to be down to cost, really. We know what we have to get to in terms of a dollar or a euro per kilogram, and it's just how we get there. Realistically, that's going to be like it or not, that's going to be the motivation, big motivation for change. So I think that's a big one for me.
That's good, and the cost is also related to the public acceptance. You know, if zero emission fuel means that the bus tickets will be 10 times as expensive as with fossil fuels, that will be a problem for public acceptance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Good. I said we're done with this whataboutism in my initial introduction. Still, we have to bring it up again. I guess you've been discussing this all the time. Why not battery? Isn't it better with battery? Why not battery? Can you just bring that up once again?
Yeah, so I think coming back to the point that I made in the presentation, a lot of people feel it's a battery versus fuel cell sort of situation, which in people like a certain owner of a social media website don't help that matter. I think Elon Musk is quite famous for having made comments about hydrogen and fuel cells. But realistically, the future is going to require a blend. It's not going to be one particular solution. And when you sit down and do the maths, essentially, there's a very approximate way to look at it, and that is that for today's combustion engine vehicles, anything that's powered by petrol, say, is suitable to be replaced completely by battery. Anything that is diesel is maybe going to be more suitable for hydrogen and fuel cells. It tends to be the larger the vehicle, the more economic sense it makes to go to hydrogen over battery. But there's also some situations where we sort of sit in the middle and we need a battery for peak loads, but there's a fuel cell that's constantly topping up the battery. So it's a kind of hybrid solution that sits in the middle. So again, it's a bit of a grey area. It's not black and white like a lot of things. But it's essentially the future requires a combination of both, and they can't really exist without each other, I think.
That's good. They can't exist without each other. Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's move to Vasco. I have several questions. No. Well, I do have, but we can't have them all. But we will try to sum up a little bit. First, if you could try in a very short as it's possible to explain to the audience, you were talking about hydrogen valleys, and there were also mentioned hydrogen valleys in other presentations, and I think in this room, I think we have 3 applications for funding of hydrogen valleys, competitors. but can you please explain a little bit hydrogen valley? Why and how, sort of?
Well, thank you for the question. I think Hydrogen Valley makes sense because before investment, before you go to build your applications, production, and so on, you have to prepare the producers and users. So that's a good idea because they previously are preparing a huge amount of production of hydrogen. They have to think about where they come to the renewable energy, probably with solar panels, but if you are in the north of Europe, probably it comes from wind energy, offshore energy, and so on. So when you have the energy, you have to put together with the electrolyzers producers. So you have a lot of hydrogen, but it only makes sense if you have several players. And if you can collect several services like an industry, hydrogen injection in the natural gas, perhaps it takes a lot of hydrogen, and transportation, some transportation, and so on. So you let the different users use all these infrastructures that makes sense if you use a large quantity of hydrogen and you put several players in place. So that makes sense. And there's not the need of, for instance, some memorandum of understanding between just two entities, and one entity fails and get a legal problem, and then producer gets burned. So it's difficult with 2 or 3 partners. It's much difficult. If you get a valley, you have a spread of risk. And that's, I think, makes a lot of sense. And for that reason, I think the hydrogen valleys must be supported, because it's the most economical way to begin get rid of the chicken and egg dilemma.
That was a very good explanation. It's all about spreading the risk, and I think that is a very important part of it. In your presentation, and also I've been looking a little bit on the Portuguese hydrogen strategy, there are several areas for Portugal to say, succeed, you know, to launch this first market. They are mentioned to power to gas, use hydrogen and natural gas network, and obviously to mobility and so on, and also this in the industry, and production of synthetic fuels. Which of these areas do you think will, you know, launch or fly first? Which will be the Portuguese success?
I think the most easiest part is the injection of hydrogen in natural gas, because since it's a receiver of liquefied natural gas in this port from other countries, of course. And so they have a distribution for all the country based on Sines. So it's very easy. It's difficult to get a higher percentage of hydrogen in the grid because there is so much hydrogen, so much natural gas. So you have to produce a lot of hydrogen to get a higher percentage. But you have a high standard that maybe is 13% or something, which is a lot. This is a lot of hydrogen. So I think it's a little bit easier to do that. There are some pilots going on in a closed grid between 0% injection to 20%. And this network, small network, is going to the customers and seeing the systems, the burners and so on, takes this percentage of hydrogen. This is really easily. But I would advert one notice about this. Environmental associations don't like very much this because they think that we are perpetuating or giving more years of existence of natural gas. So some problems will get with environmentals. That, well, I try to explain that it's better to promote the production of hydrogen because there are all benefits on that, but other users for mobility, for feedstock to industry and so on. So, of course, it extends a little bit, but it's good for infrastructure in natural gas to be used and converted at some point. So I think it would be easier. I think the most difficult part would be for mobility because we have an objective of about 50 to 100 hydrogen refueling stations till 2050, and it's very short time to 2050. We need a plan to get an initial network. We have a very good experience with the program called MOBIE, It is an institution that creates a recharge for battery electrical cars, an organized way. And we have so much good results using this system that I'm trying, and we are trying the association to get a similar program for hydrogen refueling stations.
Okay, now let's move on to emit. I think we could have been discussing a lot about what you're doing, this approach to scaling up. And that's the first questions I noted myself. And this might be a little bit on the side of this, this session, but I think it's important still. And hopefully, when we're talking about scaling up a company, now we're narrowing it down from a country, moving towards this, and I wanted your thoughts on that when you're working with upscaling. When we are trying to scale up a company, what do you think will be the most important thing to do in succeeding with a fast and efficient scale-up from a startup to a scale-up or a scale-up out to a company? What is the most important thing to do?
Well, when scaling up a company, funding is crucial. So, as mentioned before, we have many funding instruments now available, especially for hydrogen. There are many instruments. We have now the Innovation Fund also, so bigger projects have access to capital and can effectively scale. Still, oftentimes it's not enough. We have the big ambition, which I also mentioned before during my presentation, the Net Zero Industry Act, which sets forth that to scale up the manufacturing capacity, not just talking one company, but the industry as such, in the whole of the EU, we're looking at 100 billion, and currently roughly half has been somehow identified and attributed to this big endeavor that the EU has set forth. So we're still lacking capital, and it's not just public, it's also private capital that we're speaking of. So 50 billion we have. And here comes the crucial moment that also comes to the company. It's both public and private. So in order to encourage venture capital to put down the money, put the money where your mouth is into those projects, they need some kind of guarantee, some kind of confidence, right, that the project will succeed. And of course, in business, there's no guarantees. There's not 100% guarantee. But what is possible, what those projects need is swift permitting. So those projects don't sink into red tape. So that's super important. And that there's some kind of offtake, and that then we come back to the valleys, right? And that's something that we have to look at the big picture, and that's another thing that often lacks is the big picture. And I don't think in this room, I think everybody sees the big picture and then the importance of the valleys. Somehow the big picture is sometimes missed in regional, local level. One thing that we've been also advocating for is a pan-Baltic hydrogen strategy. So that we, if not a pan-Baltic, that's then in that case that we have somewhat aligned strategies for hydrogen in the Baltics. And this is also something that is important, secondly, because price was mentioned. And when we speak about price, what reduces price? Scale. So if companies have the understanding, okay, nationally we have this strategy. By the way, we don't have a national strategy for hydrogen. Secondly, okay, the regional strategy is this. So we have some kind of feeling of confidence that this is where the industry will go. It will possibly give us more scale for our operations, drive down cost, and give our ventures more success, which will drive up the confidence of private investors. So that's a play of different aspects, and the big picture is important. Yeah.
Very interesting thoughts, and it has to be, as you say, it's all about risk
And reducing risk.
and reducing risk. Yeah, it's true. I think one more thing. You were talking your Hydrogen Alliance. It seems like a very good approach to bring the whole value chain together, like you're doing. And if I could challenge you, if I could, you know, I am the board member or whatever, I would say I want this go from turntable discussions to investments. I want you to do something and do it fast. What would you do?
So you need investments, right?
Yeah, I want these people around these tables to move from talking to take investments. What would you do to bring them
So
to that point?
So first point is joint projects. So we have a short list of project opportunities that are up to date and forthcoming, so people know. So that's basically public financing opportunities, so they're up to date on that. But secondly, we do try to communicate investment opportunities to those people, like the Innovation Fund or those bridging those gaps of information where those investments opportunities are, because there is vast opportunities of financing out there, but the problem is people oftentimes do not know and do not know how to get to those people, and that's something that we try to bridge, because what is the alliance? What is the cluster? It's a multiplier, because there's different kind of initiatives or organizations that do the work we actually need, but they have a limited reach. And organizations, or the alliance for that matter, need to act as a multiplier so those organizations reach more people. Like the Innovation Agency in Latvia, they cannot reach everybody and everywhere, but they have organizations, clusters, the alliance, to multiply their efforts.
Okay, then we move to Danica. It's very interesting to hear more about alternative ways of producing hydrogen. You were touching into it, but still, I must ask you. When we look at hydrogen production from electrolyzers, we have this challenge that we need some kind of scale of it to make it profitable to start production. Not that much, but still, approximately, you need the consumption of a few thousand cars or 50, 60 heavy-duty vehicles and so on to make it profitable. And if you're talking about, say, blue hydrogen, hydrogen from natural gas with CCS, the volumes are even much higher. What is your technology? How is that? Do you have some? Do you need some kind of? Where do you find yourself in this volume of demand?
Yes. Well, the approach is somewhat different. So what we have in waste to hydrogen, the comparative advantage to electrolysis is that we have actually two income streams. So we have like this gate fee that we would generally anyhow have to pay for the waste to be managed in some way, and then again on the outlet of the system we have hydrogen that we can then further sell. So the price of hydrogen that we have in our system is now less than €2, 2.5 euros per kilogram. Again, depending on the price of the gate fee of the specific material that we will use. Just for example, the sewage sludge is somewhere on the level of 100 euros per ton, but then again, unrecyclable plastics go up over 300 euros per ton. So there is a different economy for different waste streams. As well, we are not that, let's say, volatile on the electricity price, and we don't intervene in a way with the electricity market. We don't disrupt it. We actually can produce hydrogen in a way to, let's say, contribute to the general targets of the EU. having this, as you said before, 2030 is tomorrow. Yeah, and our goals are extremely ambitious. Our capacity, or our industrial capacities for production of electrolyzers or fuel cells might not be on the level to reach that. And I think this technology neutrality, when looking at hydrogen production that is green, that doesn't have influence to the environment, should be assessed more broadly than just, renewables with electrolyzers. Of course, renewables with electrolyzers, but let's see what else we can do to actually reach this goal of decarbonization. So, looking from that part, we made some calculations for Croatia, and the amount of unrecyclable waste that we have in Croatia that would then be produced to hydrogen, and then again this hydrogen used on fuel cells to produce electricity, could meet up something like 11% of demand in Croatia, and in other EU countries it could be on the similar level. So it's actually a significant contribution. And on the other hand, we tackle two problems at once. So we are solving the waste problem that we have. So again, we are just looking at unrecyclable waste that doesn't have a second life, and this is actually enough to make a significant impact. And on the other hand, we are helping these decarbonization goals that we all have together. One other possible advantage that we see it is that our technology is 100 EU, made in EU, so we are not dependable on the rare materials. So we can work with feedstock we have in Europe, and we can work with manufacturing industry that we have in Europe, which then again gives some additional security level on our side. So for me, we were talking here about hydrogen valleys. Our company is a member of North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, where we are not only developing gas waste to hydrogen, but we are even introducing in our system electrolysis coupled with PV, so in our premises in Zagreb. So we are not just looking only at one way of hydrogen production, we are trying to see the other ways around. So I think this acceptance, especially in EU, especially through different clusters, I think we have a know-how in Europe to broaden this technology neutrality we have and to reach the goals before. Yeah.
Good. Okay, then I must say again, please feel free to ask questions. Just raise your hand and we will find a way. There's one, and maybe I will, or we'll just have a microphone runner. Probably. Those who are as old as me remember this microphone runner in the old MTV, or was it Super Channel? Now you have to run.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you. Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the panel. Quick question. My name is Fausto. I'm from Portugal, from a startup company called Avos, which focuses on bringing together different activities in the same maritime offshore environments. We focus on aquaculture, renewable energies. Portugal at the moment is allocating a large amount of capacity for offshore wind, floating technology, in areas which are away from the coast with depths around 100 meters in the ocean. The question is, how feasible is it to produce hydrogen in such conditions? And I have heard that the fact that you have depth and pressure for storage of 10 atmospheres at 100 meters, is this feasible at all? Thank you very much.
Well, who wants to answer that? I think I know at least one guy who wants to take the word first.
Say something. Not a specialist in electrolyzing offshore, but I have been in Essen, Nuth, near Düsseldorf this year, and they are talking a lot about that because of North Sea, because they are discussing if it is better to generate electricity to shore and then generate hydrogen on shore, or generate hydrogen offshore and with pipelines connected to there. And there's a study that seems that is more reasonable for the North Sea to produce directly hydrogen in offshore because of the distance and collect them along the way with a central pipeline to shore. That's my answer. I think it depends from the distance, but it's a very good proposal, for instance, for Germany and all these countries in the north, because the pipelines will intend to go in north-south, so transporting all of this renewable energy to the south. So it seems that is a very good idea. I don't know how electrolysis will work in a salt environment. For once, I don't know answer that. But pipelines and huge amounts of hydrogen seems to go along. So I think you have a follow-up question?
Do you have a follow-up?
A follow-up?
I could answer that on electrolyzers in salty environments.
That was one of the questions.
Yeah,
Do you probably have desalinization as needed for the process. No, the comment is you have also an advantage of using hydrogen instead of transporting the energy if the network of the country is not prepared for the peaks of intermittent production. So the storage gives you a buffer that just injecting electricity on the grid sometimes cannot be done. Thank you.
That's true, and electrolysis has been tested in salty environments. There's a pilot in Denmark where the power company Ørsted has electrolyzer installed at the offshore wind turbine. Has been working for several years. Just as a comment.
Answer done, so it's ready to run.
Yes, and we obviously in Norway has several projects were addressing this issue. So also with storage undersea. Yeah, it's a project called Deep Purple, actually, doing that.
And also for Baltic Sea, it's a similar project to open to wind turbines and collect hydrogen also. So this is a huge financial effort, but I think all countries over there are agreeing with this. So I think it will run in a few years. I believe so.
Other comments to that last questions? Do we think we have answered good enough? Yeah, great. And then I just open up a little bit for you all, just to take the word and share some general thoughts. If anyone wants to do that, feel free and just raise your hand. And you're first.
I have
Moscow.
one to do, because I was trying to tell this in the first presentation, then I didn't have time. So now it's a good opportunity. When you are innovators, so this is nothing new. Learning by doing improves products, improves the service, improves the product. And what I have seen in Portugal with the first companies that are producing the first products, they now have the second generation of products. They are improving a lot. This bus company that's producing hydrogen buses and battery also, they have in 2023 a market share of 32%. This second generation bus is allowing refueling with 350 bars and 700 bars. And maybe all of you have learned and heard that, no, heavy duty vehicles, only 350 bars. So forget it. Now here are vehicles that they can take both pressures, so it's very flexible. Now if you have 700 bars, you are prepared for faster refillings because you go to minus 40 degrees with the chiller, and you can go even further quantities. So now they are available, presented very recently. A bus is actually a coach with 1,000 range capacity. So intercities, so they call it the expresso trips in our countries, they are available for tourism, for instance. So this is a sector that we're not talking about. And that's consequence of the first stage run so well, because there are more than 130 buses in Europe. They are doing great. So the second generation is even better, and I believe the third generation will be better too. So you must start doing, even if you are not perfect, because you are increasing very fast indeed. So I have a proposal for Portugal, and it could be reasonable for many countries, and have a strategic position of some hydrogen refueling stations for this kind of coaches, for long distances. Because when you don't have a train, you don't have any chance to decarbonize. And you don't need many. So in Portugal and Spain, you don't need many stations to cover all peninsula. So the main cities would be by 6 to 8 stations with 1,000 kilometers range for these buses. It could be great. It's not so expensive. That's one of my ideas from this session. Thank you.
That's a good idea as well. Please, anyone?
Well, just to follow up, one of the things I mentioned before is not to make the mistake as again, like it was done with PV, where we had the technological leadership, but then when it came down to big rollout of technologies and manufacturing, someone else got the leader. I'm speaking of China, so just not losing the priorities. So, but this is being tackled with the Net Zero Industry Act, but that is significant. So not just investing into R&D, but also being a manufacturer of technology and technology provider. And another thing is, I said it before as well, but the big picture. So understanding at the top, at the policymaker level, is important, because that just kickstarts it, and things start to happen, and they don't need to be perfect. They just need to start to happen, because then projects will start to pop up. And when we think about hydrogen innovators, startup companies and so on, there are not that many. I'm taking the example of Latvia or the Baltics now. There are not that many, but why is that? Because the ecosystem is not there to support those kind of companies. If there would be those kind of valleys or ecosystems there with public fueling, etc., more companies would create services, products, technologies around it. So it has to start, happens somewhere. It has to start, and that's the chicken and egg problem, which was mentioned. But it's easy to tackle. It just has to happen.
It just has to happen. Any more comments, please, Paul?
Yeah, I've got a couple of bits and pieces. Essentially, I mean, I've worked in hydrogen and fuel cells now since, I make the joke sometimes it's 2 millennia, because I started in 1999 when I started my PhD. And I think recently one of the sort of the big things I was volunteered for when I started my job at Power Up was the old CTO would once every 6 months or so go to give a lecture to the local Taltech sixth form students, what's the equivalent of sixth form students, and talk about future technologies. So I put together a presentation. It was essentially a kind of like my life's works, if you like, what I'd seen, what I'd learned, the companies that I've worked for, and what kind of mistakes we've learned, and what things have gone right, what things have gone wrong. It was quite interesting, quite therapeutic to do it that way, actually. But I think sort of one of the biggest things we've learned is just mistakes by doing. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. So one of the company that I worked for the longest period of time was a company called Intelligent Energy, who are still going, based in the UK. And one of the big mistakes they made was their vision was to put a fuel cell everywhere. They saw fuel cells suitable for things like consumer electronics, for example, which on the face of it now seems crazy. One of the products they brought out was a fuel cell charger that was almost like your kind of battery pack for charging your iPad or your phone. And it was a completely ridiculous concept. No one would, rather than plugging into a wall, go and buy a fuel cartridge and charge up a mobile phone. But we kind of got caught up in the kind of wave of hydrogen everywhere. And I think sort of what I've learned from it really is the fact that it's okay to make mistakes, but also multiple solutions will be the answer. There's not going to be this battery versus fuel cell thing is just really sort of not a sensible conversation. It's going to take an even spread of technologies that will have their own kind of niche applications, and that's how we'll get to where we need to go.
Thanks. Okay. I think one thing I would like to ask you, and just go for almost each country, I would say. Who will be because we're talking about this chicken and the egg, we say that is wrong, chicken or the egg. That's one thing. It was mentioned in some of the presentations that the solution is holistic. We have to have a system perspective and so on. We've been into this several times today. And what we are really talking about here is we are actually trying to create a new market, in other words. It's a new functioning market, as it is for petrol and diesel. It's a well-functioning market. And that is what we are trying to do. But I think what we are actually hunting here is the big off-taker to kickstart the market. If someone would buy hydrogen at the, say, a reasonable price in large volumes, then the market will go. That's not a problem anymore. And I would like to ask you, each and everyone, to comment, what do you think will be the first off-taker in your country or in the areas where you know the market and the potential? What will be the large off-taker that will make this market launch? Start with you.
As you said, we believe that the big off-taker is crucial. So in Croatia, we see that I would say in two industries. One is petrochemical fertilizer production, which is actually, I believe, in each country. The other one is, of course, refinery. And besides that, I think all of our countries are sea countries. In Croatia, we have a pending project for making Port of Kirk, inlet port for the ammonia produced in Brasilia. So again, this infrastructure that is foreseen to be built will possibly kickstart the chicken or the egg on the other hand. As well, I think transportation could be a big startup, big source. We are speaking here about greening transportation, and we are speaking about infrastructure for hydrogen. I don't know why, but my view is that railways can be a great transportation way for transporting hydrogen. So, okay, we don't have pipelines everywhere, but we have railways that can go use hydrogen for their propulsion, and at the same time transport hydrogen via their railways, which are the railway infrastructure in Europe is quite good. So I believe this will be a crucial point for bringing hydrogen to different parts of Europe and finding consumers there. Yeah.
Shall we just go around? How about Portugal? What will be your large customer?
Yeah, I agree. That's why the location of Sines that I talked about, petrochemical industry, refinery. So industry takes it all. You don't give nothing to transportation if they like. If they want it, they take all the edge they can get. So they are pretty safe on that project. Maybe I will talk just two small projects that are very interesting and are not great off-takers, but is a different approach. The first one we have in Portugal, not me, just Portugal, two submarines that use hydrogen. They were built in Germany 2009, 2010, maybe. And that purpose was not decarbonization, was a tactical option, because hydrogen is very good with PEMs in a very silent mode with very low temperature signature. So they are, when they are in surveillance mode, they are very difficult to find. So they are the most advanced, excluding the nuclear submarines. And that's one of the applications that started, it goes on. Not by the decarbonization aspect, but for the tactical of surveillance in silence mode. The second, we have been with the visit of a hydrogen train 2 or 3 weeks ago from the Spanish project FCH to Rail, similar with happening in Germany with the Corinthia Elint that is running nowadays. The visit of that train to the north line of north of Portugal, Linha do Minho, was very interesting. Well, you only give access to the infrastructure, and they made some runs over there, showing that it's possible to do this kind of job. And the utility of this kind of trains is because Portugal, as Germany, we have 30% of the railways not electrified, because it doesn't make economical sense to do it. If it does, you have to electrify, of course, because you recover the investment very quickly. But if it takes 50, 70, or 100 years or never, it doesn't make sense. And also, there is a lot of copper, a lot of material that is necessary to electrify. So it's a waste of material, maybe, to electrify these tracks. So I think this hydrogen train is an electrical train, has the same properties, and could be a good approach, and will consume some more hydrogen to mobility. So that's it. I think either industry will be the big off-taker, and if they left something, 5% or so for mobility, it would be great, because you will not talk about the cost of hydrogen anymore, because industry will pay it very, very soon. Thank you.
And how about the Baltics? What will launch the market for hydrogen in, say, let's start with Estonia?
Well, I think a couple of things probably sort of motivate Estonia. Clearly, politically, there's a bit of a need to have energy security. And I think a couple of projects that are on the go at the moment are kind of highlighting the need for hydrogen. There's a couple of power plants, combustion plants that are being set up, I think, to be ready by 2030, that will be able to use not only sort of natural gas, but also be ready to take a kind of hydrogen feedstock as well. They're being set up to, say, 100 megawatt, I think is the actual peak profile. They're also quite seriously looking at large scale, in this case, fuel cell, not necessarily the same fuel cell that I presented, but large scale fuel cell plants for CHP. So that would not just be for your generation of energy, but also your kind of local district hot water as well. So very, very high efficiency systems. Obviously, Estonia is very, very keen to secure its energy future, and I think that's what's really driving some of these projects forward.
That's interesting. And how about Latvia?
Well, realistically speaking, we haven't, we haven't that much talked about the hard-to-abate industries, so steel and cement. So we don't have steel industry in Latvia, but we do have some cement industry, so of definitely that. I do know that those players are looking significantly into hydrogen as well. That's that, but energy resilience, we didn't speak that much about it as well, so certainly energy production and energy storage will be a topic. But as I mentioned, ports definitely, so those transportation hubs will be those biggest off-takers in the near future, so those are the ports. Also airport is heavily investigating and investing into hydrogen solutions, so in near-term future, definitely this.
Thank you. We got some very interesting approaches at the end now from the panel on where will we see the hydrogen market really really launch. And the use of hydrogen in several applications. And this brings us a little bit to the hydrogen for greening transportation here. And it's a bit, say, interesting or ironic that transport in itself might not launch a hydrogen market. The demand for green fuel might not launch the market. The industry might do it, or the need of resilience or energy security, energy independence might as well launch this market. And this brings us also to, you know, if as we're doing here today, we're talking about hydrogen for greening transportation, we have to look wider. We have to look to hydrogen for industry applications and other applications as well. And this, I'm trying to sum up this now. I will be short, but for me, working with hydrogen in Norway since 2015, trying to launch the first value change, as we called it, and still call it, which is actually, it's a market. We're trying to create a market. We had some support streams in Norway, some grants on this, and they were like thematic, hydrogen for maritime, or hydrogen for industry, and so on. And that hasn't worked. But quite good support systems, but still no large investment decisions have been made. We have done some piloting and so on, and that is funny for a while. And it's also important to do what's been said by several of you here, that we have to try to, it doesn't have to be perfect, was said, and don't be afraid to take mistakes. Yes, we have to do some pilots, we have to be brave and move fast. That's important, still important, but now we need to scale up and we have to prioritize to launch this market. We won't save the world by building pilots anymore. We have to move further on. We have to scale up and we have to industrialize, and we also have to prioritize a bit harder. And we might also have to be pragmatic. And it's all about the risk and reducing the risk. And the way our authorities in our countries and the way EU speaks about this, and it's very important for us who represent the industry that our governments and the EU are very, very clear on their ambitions and what is going to happen the next years. Because as I've heard you were talking about, and also from me, I've sensed a little bit the last years uncertainty from the industry. They have turned a little bit, like they're gambling on, because this is all about risk, you know. You take a high risk, you lose more or you win more than your competitors. That's what's risk all about. And for me, I'm a bit scared now, because it seems to me like many industrial actors looks like they are betting on that we're going to lose. More and more important industrial players are saying, I'll rather wait a little bit, because we won't reach that 2030 target anyway. So that's a bit scary, and that's a big warning, and that's why we need our authorities to be clear that no, we won't lose that bet. We will reach our targets in 2030, and yes, the CO2 taxes will rise sky high, and you will lose if you go fossil. That will be stranded assets. Our authorities have to be clear on that. The industry needs them to be clear on that. Yeah, that's maybe the last thing I would like to say before we have more, say, reception and walk and talk, and hopefully some wine, not dine, but wine only, hopefully. We'll see what they bring. So thank you very much, all of you. Especially thank you for the great panel. Applause for them, please.